If you give them $250, they may spend it on a TV screen. So some of you already know what type of street activism is being alluded to here. If you give them $1,500, they may spend it on 4 screens, a battery charger, folding table and chairs, headphones, USB storage, and carry cases. Okay, so when you scroll down, they have a section titled Financial Reports, where, curiously, only one report is listed, which is for January to June of 2024. And, in fact, the financial report is not there. It simply says, January to June 2024 report, an overview of our finances in the first half of 2024, including how we spent the proceeds of our fundraising this year. And then you simply have 2 words in English, coming soon. I still think these questions matter. I still think they're worth asking. And I'm aware these are precisely the questions vegans can't cope with. So I think we have to learn from the questions that vegans can't answer.
Hit mics like Ted Koppel, rifle expert, let off the Eiffel, burn a flag in your grass, spiteful, ringleader, set it off, rap Derek Jeter, culprit, prince of the game, wish you could see us, we lay low, glitter wax, full bangles, priceless ropes, lay around the guard, get tangled, woolly hair, eyes fiery red, feet made of brass, 12 men following me, it be the guard staff move, every script's like Miramax, smashed the big boy, totaled it, Wilshire, Fairfax, sunbeaming, wifey on the beach, sipping Zima, Rubinos to Latinos, we love Selena overnight. God schedules, FedEx, pretty solo at Velvet Nights, DNA scroll genetics too hot to handle one thought from scrambling, demanding land. 100 gang, Will Chamberlain, smack him, say when he rolling up, face wrinkled up, hands is on his nuts. Yo, kid, stop fronting on the grounds before you get touched. It's Canada Dry, sesh with a law, son. We won't ride, we want it so bad we might cry.
Every so often, I hear one of my fellow vegans praise a leader, praise an activist, or praise an organization that in the last 10 years has accomplished absolutely nothing. Now, to be fair, there are many hobbies, there are many pastimes, there are many passions we may have that accomplish nothing. I recently spoke with a 22-year-old aspiring stand-up comedian, and she was kind of shouting out these other comedians. She was praising and talking about these other comedians in the scene who she admires, she looks up to. I think it's fair to say people she really regards as success stories, as positive examples she can learn from. And I said to her, "You're 22. Every single one of those guys you just mentioned was already doing this 10 years ago when you were 12. When you were 12 years old, these same comedians were coming to this same bar and telling these same jokes at that microphone in front of these chairs, in front of these tables. I'm not even going to say in front of these people. The people in the audience weren't the same, but most of the time there were no people at all. It's just tables and chairs. I don't know what impression this made on her. But what I was trying to say was, you think you're looking at success. I know. You're looking at failure. A comedian who's been doing the same act in the same venue again and again for 10 years. That's not success. That's not a model you should aspire to imitate. By the same token, what we see going on in vegan activism and the vegan movement, it would be a mistake to regard an organization that has endured for 10 years as a success. It would be a mistake to regard a social media influencer who's continued to get thousands of views per year, possibly to pay their rent with, the revenue, the donations, social media just brought to their lives. It would be a mistake to regard that as a model to be imitated. What you're looking at is failure, because you've got to measure the difference between success and failure by the outcomes. Back in the year 2022, I sent a set of questions to an organization called We the Free. And I'm not saying this to insult them, but even my audience, even my regular viewers, probably have never heard of this group. And I am not saying this to insult them, but it's quite possible they exist because of the generosity of just one donor. It only takes one millionaire to hit it out of the park. It only takes the support, the interest, the patience of one wealthy donor to sustain a small political organization for many years, for many decades, right? I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know. Their most recent video on YouTube is only 1 minute long, and it has 112 views. 112. On Instagram, they claim that they have a hit video that's 3 minutes long on their own website, not on YouTube, not on any website where the number of viewers could be independently verified. On their own website, they claim they have a 3-minute video that has been viewed over 10 million times. They may not be lying intentionally, but let me tell you something. I don't believe them. If I knew a rapper who only had 112 views on YouTube, but he said, on my own website, where I post the song, where I post the video, it's been downloaded over 10 million times, I would have to say again, I don't believe you. Even if you're not lying, like you're not lying intentionally, you may have been misled by some of the jiggery pokery that goes on this thing here called the internet. If it's your own website, if you don't know how to scrutinize the data, you're not doing all the things YouTube does to try to ensure that the numbers are hard numbers, are real factual reflections of how many human beings are clicking. Maybe you think you got 10 million views, but I don't think so. Okay. Now, their most popular video, 3,600 views from 4 years ago. They have only 3 on YouTube. And there is a young woman in the video, perhaps more striking than lovely. She happens to be the girlfriend of a vegan activist whom I have known for many, many years. Or at least she was at the time, 4 years ago. So right away it clicked for me. Okay, I'm less than 6 degrees of separation from these people. I know a couple of the people involved to some extent, and they know me. I mean, that's probably the more significant thing. I know that guy, the boyfriend of the young woman who's in the video. I know he remembers me. I know he'd recognize my name. 6 months ago, hilariously, this group, We the Free, posted a sort of video collab or interview that is 1 hour and 49 minutes long, titled, Why Street Activism Still Works. The words still works are in all caps. That video, 6 months ago, 1,300 views. It's a collab with another channel. It is not on their own channel. The financial reality of this organization is a total mystery to me. Okay? What they even pretend to have accomplished is a mystery to me. How they measure their impacts, outcomes, accomplishments, I don't know. I used to work in a field called outcome evaluation in Cambodia, in the nonprofit sector, humanitarian intervention sector. Whether it is called impact evaluation or outcome evaluation, there is an industry of social scientists who are employed to try to measure what harm and what good has been accomplished by national and international charities. So this is an example I think I've mentioned before. I've been on YouTube for a long time, people, okay? Send me an email if you've heard this example before. There was a project to provide new, clean running water in one of the suburbs of Vientiane, the capital city of Laos. But what do you know? It actually was entirely turned into a for-profit business by an ice factory. So yeah, this charity took donations from people, built some kind of new water purification, water pump facility, but, you know, it made one family wealthy, the family that owned an ice factory. So kind of an odious outcome. And I read a report dealing with that. It's like, well, you know, trying to do a good thing to make the world a better place. I guess everyone needs ice. It was a third world country where people had cold drinks with ice in them. And I think in many parts of the Western world, ice is not really sold as a commodity anymore, but it sure was at that time in Vientiane, Laos. Even with education policy, even with healthcare policy, you're donating money, to support a health insurance scheme for poor people in Cambodia, in Laos, in Thailand. What are the real outcomes? What if there's corruption? What if a small number of people are getting rich and the poor are getting poorer? It's a significant. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I think the awareness of that industry, just the awareness that it exists, just that the questions can be asked and that the answers can be found, is an important part of the political science perspective on life in the world. Where you say, look, it's not impossible to know these things. With a little bit of work, with a little bit of research funding, we can find out what the impacts are. Some good, some bad, or what have you. Now, I said just a moment ago that this group is mysterious to me, where their money comes from, where it goes, what they actually accomplish, and what they pretend to accomplish. On their own website, which is called www.activism.wtf, there is a sub-page. There's a page within it called Your Donations. So that's /your_donations. They give a list of the sort of things they like to buy with your donations. If you give them $250, they may spend it on a TV screen. So some of you already know what type of street activism is being alluded to here, and some of you don't. Some of you are sick of it. Some of you are not. All right. If you give them $1,500, they may spend it on a complete essential equipment pack for a We the Free team. 4 screens, a battery charger, folding table and chairs, headphones, USB storage, and carry cases. Okay, so when you scroll down, they have a section titled Financial Reports, where, curiously, only one report is listed, which is for January to June of 2024. I talked to these guys in 2022. They've been around for more years than that. They started earlier than 2024, and they still continue to this day, so it's a little peculiar to me. And, in fact, the financial report is not there. It simply says, January to June 2024 report, an overview of our finances in the first half of 2024, including how we spent the proceeds of our fundraising this year. And then you simply have 2 words in English, coming soon. So no PDF, no accountability, what have you. Now look, I got to tell you something. I don't think it's their full-time job to be accountable. If they want to be mysterious, if they want to ball out like the CIA, if they want to act like, yo, it's all black ops, if they want to play by those rules, be honest and open about it. Be honest and open about being secretive. That's what I'm trying to say here. Likewise, if they're a small, humble organization that only gets 100 views on a YouTube video, that's fine. Don't lie to me and claim that you've had over 10 million views on some other video where there's no way to independently verify how many people have seen that video. But above all else, in ways both shallow and profound, of course, I object to their relatively recent political statement 6 months ago. Only 1,300 people have seen it. Why street activism still works. The fundamental problem here, coming back to the image or anecdote I opened this podcast with, the fundamental problem here is the same as what I said to that stand-up comedian. Okay? To paraphrase a line from the rapper 50 Cent, you've been hustling a long time, and you ain't got nothing. Okay? Think about who these people were and what they were doing 5 years ago. Think about what they're doing now. Think about what they are going to accomplish 5 years from now. So, back in the year 2022, I might as well give you guys the exact date, I sent them a series of questions. We had a reasonably cordial correspondence leading up to this, reasonably cordial discussion afterwards. They absolutely refused to answer any of the questions. They absolutely refused to do an interview with me. They can't handle it. They can't handle the realness. So this was February 22nd of 2022. That's early in the year 2022. Today, when I'm recording this, is March 7th, 2026. And I'm now going to read you the relatively verbose questions I asked them. I believe there are 7. I'm warning you up front, these are not brief. These are long, descriptive questions. The questions contain a lot of information, although, it's not a pretext for me to give you a monologue. Each one of these questions was written with the hope that they would answer. And I'll say this to you in the audience, honestly. I hope you'll answer. I hope I'll hear back some reflections from you and you and you. Okay? Whatever it is you're doing, whether it's just as one individual, as a member of an organization, or what have you. I still think these questions matter. I still think they're worth asking. And I'm aware these are precisely the questions vegans can't cope with. So I think we have to learn from the questions that vegans can't answer. Number 1, I'm sending these questions to an email address in Calgary. Perhaps you disagree with me, but in a country the size of Canada, in my honest opinion, there is no meaningful connection between the vegan movement in Calgary, the vegan movement in Montreal, nor is there a meaningful connection between Montreal and the West Coast. Does it make sense for We the Free or any vegan organization to be on a national scale, even in a country the size of Canada? Does it make sense to have national, international, and global organizations when the reality often is that the movement consists of very small groups of perhaps 5 people who do not actually collaborate with or benefit from being supported by other chapters in other cities, let alone other countries? So, pause. You guys may or may not remember Wayne Seong's organization that now pretty much just admits there are 5 people in Berkeley, California, right? They used to always identify as a global network, as an international network. How about the, notorious Black Lives Matter global network? Is that a global network? Shouldn't we start with and work with a certain level of humility and honesty of saying, hey, we're 5 people in one city or one small town, whatever your situation is. And if you're not 5 people, if you're 50 people, okay, great. But yeah, it does seem very strange to me to even talk about a national level of organization, let alone international. Good luck connecting just 2 cities in Canada. The cities are very far apart. It's very expensive to fly between 2 cities in Canada. It's very expensive to stay in a hotel for 5 nights in Canada. Just look at 5 nights in a hotel in Toronto. It's horrifying. So, anyway, I return to my question. You may or may not be familiar with a vegan organization called Nation Rising, now defunct. Okay, so at that time it still existed. That was yet another vegan organization that came and went. You may or may not be familiar with a vegan organization called Nation Rising. They have always insisted on grandiose claims about being organized on a national scale. But the reality is that people, including people I've met face to face, are expected to spend huge sums of money traveling to Ottawa, staying in a hotel at their own expense, just to have a demoralizing and disappointing experience for the sake of a lot of revolutionary rhetoric that, frankly, the organization can never deliver on. Travel within Canada and staying in hotels in Canada is more expensive than vacationing in Thailand. And I would know. In asking people to travel from Vancouver and Montreal to any city in central Canada, like Toronto, Ottawa, or even Calgary for that matter, is really asking a lot in terms of time and money. In return, participants are not given a lot. Frankly, they're given nothing at all. This is only the shallowest level of analysis, but it still is an important one. Just one step deeper, we get into the question of practical democracy. You need to have a long memory for minutiae in the history of the vegan movement to know this. But DXE began by claiming that their global organization was, quote-unquote, entirely horizontal. Quote, entirely horizontal, unquote, with no hierarchy whatsoever. For years, they dodged questions of who was in charge and of how they were elected, of where the money was going, etc., by insisting on their horizontality. That ended with a series of sex scandals. They became a starkly vertical organization when they suddenly decided it was necessary to investigate and pass judgment on the sex lives of their activists. Are there, in fact, advantages to national, international, and global levels of organization that justify the disadvantages?
To show our support for the revolutionary solution.
Within veganism, if something doesn't work, we seem to keep doing it again and again. And if anything, we try to repeat the same tactic with more lies about how many people attend, how successful it is, how great the impacts are, and with ever more radical rhetoric. So Nation Rising started out by promising that what they were doing was, quote, not a protest, but a revolution, close quote. And they're back again this year, and mysteriously, their promises of revolution have not been fulfilled. And what they say is, quote unquote, not a protest, looks more like a pathetic protest than ever. And, last year they lied about how many people attended their event. I'll be interested to see if they lie again and claim that many hundreds of people or many thousands of people participated in this event. I pointed out last year that when you actually got a crowd shot showing everyone at the event or most of the people at the event in one frame of an image, maybe there were 30 people there, maybe there were 50 people there, but frankly, the numbers looked very, very small indeed. And it's not all about the numbers. It's also about the quality of what these people are doing with their time. Canada is a geographically enormous country. Toronto is probably the closest major city to Ottawa, but the trip from Toronto to Ottawa is at least 4 hours by car. If you take a bus, of course, it'll be more. It really is a huge amount of time and money. It's not cheap to stay in a hotel in Ottawa. To get from Toronto to Ottawa, stay in a hotel there. I was living in Victoria, BC. It is an unbelievable continent-spanning trip to get from Victoria to Ottawa. So take a lot of commitment, a lot of personal sacrifice to go. I would have gone if they had been nice to me, if they had been decent to me, these people. But of course they were assholes to me, like most vegan activists are. They think they're leaders of a revolution. They have a really high opinion of their importance. And of course, they would never do something like appear on my channel, do an interview and talk about what they're doing in their movement. That would have been a really successful way for them to promote themselves and maybe have more than 30 people attend their event, come and talk about vegan politics and what they're trying to accomplish. And even if there was some mutual criticism or examination or discussion of effective activism, if they'd appeared on my channel that way, some people would have watched the video on my channel and said, hey, you know what? I like their approach. I'm going to give these guys a chance. And some people would have spent a lot of money to get to Ottawa and stay in a hotel there just so they could be in this small crowd of people walking down the street with flags and I guess feel good about themselves. And so they can be in this small crowd of people listening to this woman give a speech. I mean, this is just preaching to the converted. I don't know how anyone can feel they're making a positive difference or making the world a better place by showing up and standing in a crowd of vegans, a crowd of like 30 vegans. Is it even 50 vegans? But standing in a small crowd of vegans and listening to someone say things that you already agree with. So you can just pat yourself on the back and feel like you're doing something really, quote, really radical, really revolutionary by attending this protest.
To show our support for the revolutionary solution, Nation Rising, to this major hidden ongoing scandal. Today's show, with a number of hundreds of activists, that you are truly not alone. And every time you fight against these immoral subsidies, you fight with thousands, tens of thousands of people behind you. You fight united as a nation.
I said earlier that Canada is an enormous country in terms of its size, but it is mostly empty in terms of population. And it is mostly empty in terms of talent. So, I mean, this woman who's on the microphone here, does she have more viewers on YouTube than I do? Does she have more depth or more connections in terms of reaching an audience of people who are seriously interested in vegan activism than I do? No, she doesn't. It would have been a really good idea for her or any of the organizers at Nation Rising to respond positively to my attempts to get an interview. It would have been a really good idea for them to at least let me participate in their movement, if not positively involve me. But that is exactly what was impossible for them to do, because it seems to me they are stereotypical left-wing Canadian fake radicals. And it really hurts me, it really disappoints me to see the extent to which veganism is becoming and remaining a fake radical movement. You know, there's no time to play dress-up revolutionary when there's a real revolution going on. And, you know, the vast majority of attempts to pursue social, political, cultural, and economic change are in no way revolutionary. So I ask you, why pretend? I want to be part of a real political movement, not a fake revolution.
Question number 2. The initial pitch for We the Free sounds familiar. It reminds me primarily of the original plans for DXE, Direct Action Everywhere, that were soon enough abandoned, mixed with Paul Bashir's plan for tracking the number of people converted to veganism by his street activism, plans that likewise were eventually abandoned. The main praxis of the organization looks a whole lot like Paul Bashir's AV, Anonymous for the Voiceless, without the masks, and without Paul Bashir. And maybe that's the implicit point here, I don't know. Just pause. To quote 50 Cent once again, you've been hustling a long time, and you ain't got nothing. There's a very broad question of, why would anyone start a new organization anyway? But there's a very specific question here for WTF. Why would anyone create a new organization that so closely resembles other, still ongoing initiatives in the vegan movement? I do not begin with the assumption that an organization needs to be new and innovative to change the world. For example, we could start a completely non-innovative gay rights organization that accomplishes great things, despite being old-fashioned or even because of it. But yes, it is striking that We the Free doesn't offer anything self-evidently new in terms of methodology or politics. So by the way, I'm being sincere there. You know, if you're old-fashioned, rep your set. You know, I'm old-fashioned. I think a man should wait until he is 40 years old to date women half his age. I'm a romantic, really. Question number 3. Some movements begin with people. Some movements begin with a piece of paper, a manifesto or constitution. What is puzzling to me about We the Free is that it seems to have begun with neither one. Gary Yourofsky started a vegan movement that basically was Gary Yourofsky. If people donated to it or volunteered to work for it, they knew exactly who and what they were supporting, i.e., the ersatz philosophy of Gary Yourofsky. Whether you like it or not is up to you. The same could be said of innumerable other organizations that were never much more than their leader plus a small number of support staff. Dr. Greger now has a multi-million-dollar foundation that exists for nothing more than supporting him in the creation of YouTube videos. To mention a few non-vegan examples, Extinction Rebellion has 3 very public founders. Roger Hallam being the most verbose, but he's not the only one. And supporters are aware of what they're supporting, just working from the words and deeds of the founding executives, shall we say. I do not know who founded We the Free. I do not know who is in charge of it, or why. The first YouTube video is narrated by Bree for Liberation. So again, at the time, I knew who her boyfriend was. She is credited as the presenter, so I infer that she's reading a script written by someone else, and she is not the equivalent of Gary Yourofsky for this organization. Who wrote the script? My question here is not merely who is Bree and who wrote the script, and why aren't they the person on camera pitching the idea? Although there's very little accountability in fundraising, the audience feels they know who and what they are donating to when they decide to support Gary Yourofsky, Joey Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, or Dr. Greger. Yes, this may be an illusion. You can read Dr. Greger's Form 990 and wonder where all the money goes. But the illusion has some significance here. Most organizations begin with a person, and donors then understand that they're supporting that person in a very specific act of trust. The same is true of people as diverse as James Aspey and myself. Although we may well speculate as to what anyone imagines they're donating money to support in relation to Aspey or myself, there's at least a specific person whose moral character, purpose, and ambition they're buying into. Yeah, I can ask any of my supporters on Patreon, what do you think you're buying? What exactly do you think you're supporting when you donate money to à-bas-le-ciel, when you donate money to Doomed Republic, to any of these podcasts, YouTube videos? Are some of you donating money to support my Instagram? Is that what it is? Your fans of my, is that why you're giving me money? I don't know anyway. But yeah, you know my personality. As everyone who meets me in real life says they're shocked. I'm exactly the same in real life as I am on camera, as I am on the microphone. I laugh like this. People always complain it's a fake laugh. Nope. If you meet me in real life, you can hang out with me at the stand-up comedy club. I'm smiling and laughing all the time. This is my real laugh. This is my real personality. I have a real joie de vivre. I love life. And yeah, I look the same. There's no AI enhancement of my appearance on YouTube or Instagram. I'm either just as ugly or just as handsome as you expect me to be. I admit I've met quite a few people who told me I was more handsome in person than what they were expecting. But my point being, yeah, you know, who are you donating money to if you donate money to We the Free? Who? Again, this applies to myself as well. I collected $2,000 from GoFundMe this month. Woo! That was one hell of a month then. All right. And about $300 from Patreon. That is not an ordinary month here at à-bas-le-ciel Broadcasting Corporation. Let me tell you. Okay, well, $2,300 in that month. US dollars, too. Anyone may well criticize me, asking what it is that anyone is supposed to believe in that these donations will accomplish. And I have answers. But, of course, so does James Aspey, etc. And we can all be criticized and cross-examined on the point. However, at this time, if I were to donate money to We the Free, would I be donating money to Bree for Liberation, this woman Bree? No, apparently not. Apparently she is not the leader of this organization in the same sense that Dr. Greger is the leader of his, etc. Who am I donating money to? Who am I supposedly trusting? I don't think I need to digress into the other possibility mentioned, i.e. that people are donating because they believe in a piece of paper rather than a person. It has been largely forgotten that BLM, Black Lives Matter, went through a phase of minimizing the significance of their leaders when they tried to raise money on the basis of their written constitution. But they gave this up partly because their constitution was wildly unpopular and it couldn't give interviews. If this is your strategy, i.e. if We the Free is going to be based on a published text, a book, or manifesto rather than the leadership of particular people, well, let me know what that book is, because I haven't seen any indication of it so far. If there's an answer to this question of who is we the free, we then begin to ask questions of why they're in charge rather than someone else. And yes, I note these questions have been asked recently at Direct Action Everywhere, at Anonymous for the Voiceless, and numerous other vegan organizations. Whereas this question doesn't get asked at Dr. Greger's organization because everyone involved recognizes that the organization is little more than an extension of the trust placed in Dr. Greger.
A few people were mortified and scandalized that I, as a vegan, as an aspiring vegan activist, that I would criticize Dr. Michael Greger and his nonprofit foundation, NutritionFacts.org, for the brutal financial reality that they are collecting $1.5 million per year in round numbers, about $1.5 million per year in donations in order to produce YouTube videos. Just look at the website. Just look at their YouTube channel. You cannot take a glance at what that foundation is doing and say that this justifies a budget of $1.5 million per annum. Can't do it. It's ridiculous. Now, the question I'm raising here is, at some point, doesn't efficiency become an ethical issue? At some point, isn't inefficiency evil? All right? Now, I'm not saying what Dr. Greger was doing is worthless. I'm not saying that. And you can look at, you can Google IRS Form 990 and then add the words nutritionfacts.org, and you can find out for yourself precisely how much money they're spending. I have here for the current year, 2017, $1,480,223. You can get the precise figures for how much money they're spending. And then you can look again at that YouTube channel and ask yourself, where the fuck is $1.5 million going in this YouTube channel? And they don't do nothing else. Okay, it is not the case that they're handing out packages of food to starving people in Haiti. It is not the case that they are taking, solid steel tubes and installing sewage systems in third world countries. It is not the case that Dr. Michael Greger is flying first class in order to perform heart surgery on people in war zones who fucking need the help. Nothing like that is happening here. All right? This is $1.5 million going into supporting nothing but some bullshit, self-indulgent, poorly researched YouTube videos. And you fucking know that's true. If you have ever taken the time to fact check Michael Greger's work, I'm a vegan. I sympathize with his bias, but he is biased as hell. His work is sloppy. It's full of irresponsible garbage. He goes off on tangents both during live lectures and in his YouTube videos that can't be justified. He makes generalizations that are dangerous and wrong. He says stuff off the top of his head that, he plays fast and loose about stuff that he really should neither be fast or loose about. Dr. Michael Greger personally gets paid $184,000. To be precise, $184,390 US. Okay, a little bit under $200,000 US per year. If you watch my channel, you will know that that's actually a normal salary for a family doctor in the United States of America. That is not extraordinary. That is about the amount of money he could expect to make in a normal medical practice. However, Dr. Greger does not now have a normal medical practice. He never has, at any point in his life, had a normal medical practice. He wears a lab coat, right? He looks like a doctor. He finished medical school and went directly into this public health education thing that he does. All he does is read peer-reviewed journal articles and then chit-chat about these latest developments in medical science on his YouTube channel in a very casual and sometimes irresponsible and erroneous way. And he sometimes flies around the world and gives lectures, okay? This whole foundation, according to the paperwork, Form 990, they have only 3 paid employees. So if you think $1.5 million is employing a bunch of people, no. Dr. Michael Greger, then there's a technician, it says chief tech, and then there's an executive assistant, I assume. It says executive DI, so executive director or executive assistant. That's it. That's the whole organization. Those are the only people getting paid. There's also a secretary who is not getting paid, a treasurer working on a volunteer basis. All right? This is not $1.5 million going to fund a huge staff. It's not going to fund a single researcher, right? This is not $1.5 million going to laboratory medicine. It's not going to humanitarian work, okay? This is $1.5 million going to support a fucking YouTube channel, period. There is no other activism here. There's no other justification. And you know what? If you feel that Dr. Michael Greger is earning a salary of $200,000 per year, that's debatable. If you think it's worth $200,000 per year, why can't you eliminate the inefficiency of paying $1.5 million just to deliver that $200,000 to him? Already, from my perspective, that is evil. Dr. Michael Greger should close down this foundation and just open a Patreon and receive $200,000 in donations per year. He can receive that salary. He can earn that here on YouTube doing this public education outreach. He does not need a $1.5 million foundation in order to provide him with that $200,000. So if the outcome we want here is for Michael Greger to be highly motivated and feel rewarded, feel like his time and effort is well spent, and to earn a salary, a generous salary of $200,000 US per year, if that's not what we're debating, fine. Maybe it's worth it. Let him earn that without wasting another $1.3 million. Look at this shit and ask yourself, does this look like $2 million? $2 million US were poured into the charity of paying for this guy to sit in front of the fucking camera and just talk off the top of his head about some bullshit, fucking 5 pages of reading he did. Little fucking tiny bit of research. Where did the $2 million go, okay? Dr. Greger, I have to ask the same fucking question. Like, I do this same shit on YouTube. There's some YouTube videos I've presented here that represent years of research. All right? Years of research, learning languages. I fucking studied Cambodian. I lived in Cambodia. I did humanitarian work in Cambodia. I have years of depth of research and experience on Cambodia, and I sometimes make YouTube videos talking about Cambodian politics. I'm not asking you to pay me $200,000. I'm not asking you to pay me $2 million. This is ridiculous. Sorry, the level of research that the Young Turks put into their Investigates channel, or the level of research that Dr. Greger puts in his YouTube videos, it does not justify the unbelievable inefficiency of a $1.5 million budget per annum. And I mean, if you feel it justifies a salary of $200,000 a year for Dr. Greger, then you should be able to pay that directly without wasting more than $1 million otherwise for this ridiculous, in my mind, immoral foundation, okay? At what point does efficiency become a moral problem? Let's say we travel back in time and we sit down in a room with a guy named Nixon, President of the United States, and some of his detractors on the left wing. We sit down and say, hey, you know what? We just traveled back in time. This war you want to fight in Vietnam, you know what? You can win the Vietnam War. You can create a capitalist democracy in Vietnam, but it's going to be inefficient. You know what that inefficiency involves? Minimum 1 million human casualties. More likely, over 2 million Vietnamese are going to be killed. That's a little inefficiency if you think about it. And now I want you guys why don't you guys sit down and debate here, Nixon and some people from the left wing, why don't you debate whether or not this idea you've got of creating a capitalist democracy in Vietnam is worth killing 2 million people for? Yeah, and you know what? You're also going to kind of bankrupt the United States of America. There are some other inefficiencies built in. I want you to question this. At some point, inefficiency becomes evil.
it becomes an ethical problem, even if the goal you're pursuing is worthwhile. Hey, you know what? The idea of a medical doctor reading a few fucking articles and making a YouTube video talking about the latest updates in science from a vegan perspective, that sounds great. For $1.5 million per year after year after 10 years, that's $15 million. Think about what a positive difference you can make in the world for those $15 million. It's sick. It's disgusting. Okay, hey, let's step it up a notch. Adolf Hitler. Do you want to fight a war? Travel back in time. You want to fight a war to destroy Adolf Hitler? Sounds good. Adolf Hitler is evil. You want to fight a war to... Oh, hey, there's a little inefficiency built into it. You know what that is? You're going to become allies with Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, the only other human being alive at that time who had killed more people than Adolf Hitler. And because of that alliance with Joseph Stalin, you're going to hand over Poland to him. You're going to hand over a whole chunk of Eastern Europe to him. You're going to hand over the northernmost islands of Japan, Sakhalin Island. You're going to hand over, and then he's going to have unquestioned power to go on murdering people for decades after World War II ends. Yeah, a little bit of inefficiency in there. A little bit of moral compromise that you became allies with the only human being on earth who's worse than Adolf Hitler in order to defeat Adolf Hitler. See, it gets morally complex when you think about inefficiency and you're willing to admit to yourself that it is an ethical problem. Okay? If you think Dr. Greger is earning $200,000 a year doing his bullshit form of vegan advocacy, which I can sympathize with. It's not that different from the advocacy I do here on YouTube for $200 a month. Great. Pay him the $200,000. End this bullshit. It cannot justify a budget of $1.5 million per year.
Number 4. The website's statement on leadership I do not find convincing. And I can again allude to the crumbling away of Direct Action Everywhere's commitment to horizontality as a significant precedent. So there's a link here to their leadership page. I'm just... page not found, error 404. Yeah, so they have a really cute graphic for the 404 error, but that has been deleted. So perhaps I influenced them. Perhaps by asking this question, they realized they needed to delete that web page and cover their tracks. Perhaps they realized that, like Direct Action Everywhere before them, they had set down some principles they wouldn't be able to live up to. They'd made promises they couldn't deliver on. Okay. So I just say I looked at their leadership statement, now deleted, now disappeared from the internet. Okay. Interesting. And I think they're setting themselves up to make some of the same mistakes that Wayne Xiong's group, Direct Action Everywhere, made before. You say that you'll accept people of any political persuasion and that you'll let local chapters lead with the upper echelons following, etc. Is this true in praxis? If you have a local chapter in Portland, Oregon that is entirely comprised of communists who are loudly associating your brand and your t-shirts with communism, are you really saying that the central command structure of the organization will passively allow them to make excuses for mass murder under Stalin and Mao Zedong, and that you will respect their autonomy, their local leadership, etc., that you will not attempt to discipline or silence them in any way? What if instead it's a local chapter in Virginia that's entirely comprised of vegan neo-Nazis? I am not joking. Vegan communists exist. Vegan neo-Nazis exist, and I've interviewed both myself. I've interviewed examples of both myself, I should say. Yeah. Now, I would just point out, even within the moderate range of electoral political views, are you really sure you can get along with people who today support Donald Trump, people who today support not just Donald Trump's foreign policy, his wars overseas, but, I can imagine a vegan organization tearing itself apart over the so-called ICE raids, immigration policy, people who've recently been shot by immigration enforcement in Minneapolis, the United States. Some of these issues, they're not as far to the left as communism. They're not as far to the right as neo-Nazism. But people have such strong feelings about them. Can you really get people to work together with this kind of political diversity? And can you actually can you actually live up to this notion? This is actually a step beyond horizontality that you will let the local chapter lead. So if those people are Donald Trump enthusiasts, that's fine. You are going to follow their lead. That there is no center, there is no top. You're being led by the bottom. Now, we could also mention, anyway, what about people who don't believe in science? Whether that's science applied to medicine, flat earth, different crazy anti-scientific views, religious views. In the vegan movement, you'll meet them all. So if that's the local chapter, you don't enforce rules top down. You let them, like, can you really love this? Okay. Well, would have been interesting if they'd answered the question. But as I've already told you, they wrote back saying they would never, never, never be able to answer these questions, and they would never give me an interview. And they've lived up to that promise. I continue. In praxis, Direct Action Everywhere found that they could not tolerate even very small variations in political beliefs within the organization. They ended up with ideological witch hunts. Paul Bashir's Anonymous for the Voiceless was instead committed to including conservatives and right-wingers, precisely because of the dream of a broadly inclusive vegan movement of many ideological stripes. But if you ask around or Google around, you'll soon enough find that they can't really tolerate anyone who doesn't agree with Paul Bashir down to the smallest minutiae of how the movement should be run. I know you may be inclined to dismiss this question as a joke, but it's an extremely serious problem. I'm now one of the most famous vegan leaders in Canada. Those are the days. I wouldn't say that now. This is 2022. I repeat, I am now one of the most famous vegan leaders in Canada. I don't have much competition, but I'm aware that I'm excluded from speaking at vegan events, even where the organizers do personally respect me and my work, i.e. this is a reality I've seen face to face, not merely speculation part. So yeah, I won't digress to tell the story, but I am talking about real situations there, where the people in charge really took like a couple hours to talk to me, and they really sincerely expressed appreciation for what I've done as a dissident voice in the vegan movement, as an analyst of the vegan movement, as an activist, am I right, however you want to put it. But they also recognized, like, look, we're enemies, okay? To put it that bluntly. Look, Zell, there are people like you and there are people like Aaron Janis, and our job is to keep you separated at this vegan conference. But yeah, I just say it's not necessarily personal animus. It's politics. So people can be cool with you face to face, but there's that underlying competitive reality. All right, I continue. Because I'm supposedly not left-wing enough. And I did endorse Bernie Sanders in the last American elections, so I'm left of center. And yet this can never be left-wing enough for crypto-communists who dominate most vegan organizations. So things have changed since the year 2022. I would no longer describe myself as left of center. I also would not describe myself as a popular or well-known vegan activist anymore. But then, when you think about it, the whole vegan movement has collapsed. The whole vegan movement has shrunk down to such an extent that really there are no significant voices. Certainly not in Canada. Not in a country the size of Canada. Who knows? Maybe next year I'm going to be the best-known, vegan author in Budapest or Helsinki. We'll see. I can aim for that. But no, within Canada, there's no hope. Every vegan organization I've seen claim that it doesn't have a hierarchy, or that it has an inverted hierarchy, as We the Free claims, really is just ruled by one man, or just one woman, or, often enough, just one married couple. Tell me, if or when We the Free organizes a conference, who will decide in the list of invited speakers? Who will decide who speaks and who remains silent? This is a very palpable form of hierarchy. Someone, even if they're invisible and anonymous, is in a position of authority to decide on who gets to sit on the stage, who gets to sit in the audience, and who will be excluded entirely. I remember a vegan conference in Muskoka, Ontario. Wow, that's a long time ago. I do remember it. A conference in Muskoka that did not have a very impressive list of speakers. Again, we don't have so many famous vegans in Canada competing with me on stage. And that absolutely refused to even allow me to attend, refused to allow me to even be in the audience. So yeah, again, I'm not bragging about how well known I was in those years. The point is, this was a specific event. You can look at who's there, and yeah, I would have been one of the best known people. Everyone there would have recognized me at that time. Uh, yeah, maybe one or two people there would have been more famous or more successful, but not three. We just didn't have that much talent to go around in the vegan movement at that time. And again, I'd seen the list of who else was going to be there, but I was excluded. Okay, so just say this is not unusual. In reality, organizations like DXE have a very cult-like purity test for who is allowed to participate, even though this is contrary to all the written declarations made in their first few years, etc. So I will just add that conference in Muskoka, Ontario, I don't think I had enough money to go. Travel within Canada is very expensive. Staying in a hotel is very expensive. Just being honest with you, I could have, at that time I had enough fans, I could have done a fundraiser on Kickstarter or Patreon or something. I could have asked for help. But again, often it's cheaper to fly internationally to go take a vacation in a third world country. Travel within Canada is not cheap. I do not own a car. I do not own a truck. It would have been quite expensive and difficult for me to go. So if they'd wanted me to attend, it's possible I would have refused anyway. I'm only mentioning that because it links to some of the issues talked about in response to the earlier questions. Question number 5. When you look back at the last 5 years, what have you accomplished? When you look ahead at the next 5 years, what do you expect to accomplish? Where are you going to be, and what are you going to be doing in the year 2027? Now, I digress from reading these questions just to say it's 2026 right now. And you know my opinion. I think what they've accomplished is worse than nothing. I would direct this question toward the particular person answering in Calgary, but I would ask him also to try to construe an answer for whoever is really in charge at We the Free, whoever wrote the script that Bree performed, whoever wrote the declarations of the website, etc. I do not know who that person is, or if it is a group of a few people, I do not know who they are. I think this is a reasonable question to put to the founder, or founders plural, of any political or social movement. Can we just face up to that? If you are leading a political or social movement, you should have a clear sense of what you are going to accomplish in the next 5 years. I think if you're starting a small business, it's a good idea too. It's just to think that through and have a solid answer for that. And look, some forms of charity are very humble. Maybe all you do is bake bread and give it to the homeless. You give bread to poor people. That's all you do every day. And then you could be honest about that. So yeah, 5 years from now, we will have baked so many loaves of bread per week, every week. We go out on Sunday, hand out the bread to people, and that's it. Now again, that's not the kind of charity I want to be involved in because it won't accumulate. It won't accumulate anything over time. And over those 5 years, you're going to see new homeless people come and old homeless people go. But it's very unlikely you're going to really change anyone's life for the better. So now look, I'm not against it. This is sort of like what I say about solar panels. If your hobby is putting up and maintaining solar panels, maybe that's wonderful. I just don't think solar panels are going to save the world. I don't believe in the kind of grandiose ecological claims made on behalf of solar panels, whereas I do believe in the grandiose ecological claims made about eliminating animal agriculture, radically reducing the number of cows, radically reducing the number of pigs on planet Earth, so on and so forth. So, that's my perspective. But, some forms of charity will have very, very humble ambitions and very, very humble outcomes over a 5-year period. It may be that all you're doing is the same thing again and again. I remember I once visited a Buddhist temple in the north of Laos. So it's not Vientiane. This is out in a small town. And it was a temple that had been bombed by the Americans during what we call the Vietnam War. And, I'd seen photographs of it, so it was obviously kind of moving and meaningful to me to go and visit this destroyed Buddhist temple. It was not ancient. It wasn't. It was a modern temple, but it kind of looks ancient because it was been blown up and burned down. And, it was totally covered with garbage. And nobody cared. So, if I start a charity that just cleans up Buddhist temples, literally, we go to these archaeological sites or historical ruins or these parks, and we gather up the garbage other people left behind. Beer bottles, candy wrappers, so that it's beautiful for other tourists or other people who want to visit. Okay, you got to be honest. What are the objectives over a period of 5 years? Okay, so again, I'm not saying that's evil. It requires a kind of honesty and self-discipline. And obviously, I feel that one of the crucial problems with the vegan movement at all levels of organization, big and small, has been the absence of that kind of honesty, leading to that kind of self-discipline. Yeah, we have a big problem with grandiose claims, with promises that neither the leaders nor the followers can ever deliver on. And before you know it, 5 years have gone by, and you have wasted a crucial period of your life. So come back to this anecdote. Talk to this girl who's 22 years old, and I say to her, these old men were already telling jokes in this same stand-up comedy club 10 years ago when you were 12. So promise me something. You won't be here doing this 10 years from now when you're 32. Don't waste 10 years of your life the way he wasted 10 years of his, the way this other guy wasted 15 years of his. It's going to be a different number in each case. It can be 20 years. There's no upper limit. It can be 40 years. But as it happened in this conversation, there's a couple different comedians where I know them well enough. I've talked to them. I know it's been more than 10 years. They've been spinning their wheels, so to speak, Okay, well, for this young woman, whatever potential she has in her life, I don't know what she wants to do. But you know what? If you are putting all your time and energy into stand-up comedy for 10 years, it comes at a cost. It comes at an opportunity cost. Something else. And if you spent 10 years on the block doing sidewalk activism with a vegan organization like this is not a minor sacrifice. It's really not. And keep in mind, guys, I've evaluated all kinds of projects and social movements this way. I've talked to Buddhist monks about this kind of stuff. Where you're sitting and talking to a Buddhist monk and saying, look, think about what you're demanding of these people. Think about the sacrifice of time and effort that these people are supposed to make month after month, year after year, for nothing. They have nothing to show for it. They're better off building brick walls in their spare time than doing what you're forcing them to do at this Buddhist temple. Think about it over a 5-year period, and think about what this does for the relationship between the Buddhist monk and the follower, and think about what you're supposedly trying to accomplish in this community, what you're trying to build. Just say, I've lived in many different cultures, many different social and political contexts. Of course, I've talked to communists about this stuff. Of course, I've been surrounded by communists my whole life. Anyway, and look, if you want to talk about conservatives or the right wing, the difference is those people are dedicated to having babies and raising children. Today, in the English-speaking Western world, that's the single most stark difference between left and right, is the attitude towards family life, shall we say. So a conservative would look at that 22-year-old woman and say, if you spend 10 years doing stand-up comedy, you're missing the window of opportunity in which you can get married, have a baby, start a family, these things. Really, today in Canada, this is the primary difference between conservative and liberal. And understandably, look, the liberal perspective is not insane. Most liberals would say, chase your dream. Most liberals say, look, if what you love doing is stand-up comedy, forget about having and raising a baby. You'd probably be terrible at it. Keep telling jokes. Don't learn how to change diapers. You don't need to do. So, I mean, there are these kinds of philosophical differences out there. Look, one way or another, you got to ask yourself, 5 years from now, what do I want to accomplish? Who is that better person I want to be? And what's the work I got to do to become them? Continue reading. The founding documents for We the Free, including the first YouTube video, allude to the problem of attrition. In other words, vegans quitting. I wonder if this is linked to the question about what has happened in your life or in the founders' lives, plural, in the last 5 years. I've made many, many YouTube videos discussing these same issues, but my conclusions, blank. So I didn't finish that paragraph. I probably meant to delete that, but didn't. So, yeah, I think we can just say, I've made many videos talking about these things. You wouldn't want to hear my conclusions. You wouldn't want to know. Question number 6. The pitch video promises, quote, community, unquote, and a, quote, culture, unquote. Today, in 2022, what is the community that We the Free can actually offer me? So I don't even know why this guy was in Calgary, the email address I was writing to. Should I move to Calgary? Is there actually a vegan community there I can be a part of? There isn't. There's one guy. I get it. Maybe there were 2, 3, or 5. I doubt it. I flirted with a woman at the grocery store today, literally on the basis of the vegan groceries in my cart. So she was interested in me and started showing me. All right. So I just say, you can meet vegans. They notice you're buying soy milk and they're like, hey, hey, you like soy milk? I like soy milk too. We should start a club. I don't think it was a club she wanted to start with me, but whatever. It's hard to be loved, okay, people? If you think it's hard to be hated, let me tell you, it's hard to be loved. But no, I don't think I can join a community in Calgary. I don't think I can join a community in Ottawa, nor in Chiang Mai, Thailand. All right. Continue with this question. I will pose this question with me actually meaning Aizil Mazard. Again, one of the most famous vegans in Canada, partly due to the weakness of my competition. I repeat briefly, this is now 2026. I would not say that about myself today. My fame has faded, at least in this area. Perhaps I'm more famous or more notorious in some other areas of human inquiry. All right. Looking ahead just 5 years, in 2027, what is the community that We the Free will actually offer me? It's 2026 now. It's not too late for them to reply to this question. Okay. My honest opinion, whether you consider this skeptical or not, is that I'd have a better chance of being a part of a vegan community and a vegan culture if I buy an airplane ticket to Taiwan, Thailand, or Tel Aviv, with some possible footnote for the possibility of converting to Jainism and flying to India. Oh, boy. So, again, it's interesting what I'm suggesting here, but now in 2026, I have no hope about any of those. I have no optimism about the vegan movement in Taiwan, no optimism about Thailand, no optimism about Tel Aviv, and I've investigated all three as thoroughly as I possibly could. Jainism in India, never looked into it. I've never seriously considered joining the Jain faith. And I think some of those people are vegan, but they're vegan for the wrong reasons. They're vegan for supernatural, magical reasons. These are promises other vegan movements have made before. I've never seen any vegan organization even attempt to deliver on them. Not even when they have a multi-million-dollar budget. I just want to reiterate that. I have seen other vegan organizations promise a community, promise a culture, promise family even. I've seen them use this term, like we're giving you an extended family of other vegan activists, okay? And I have never seen any vegan organization even attempt to deliver on these promises, not even when they have a multi-million-dollar budget. I don't know, guys. Make promises you can keep, and then keep them. Question number 7, the last one of the bunch. Finally, training. I do not believe the claim that We the Free offers professional level training. If I actually spend the time and money to buy an airplane ticket and live in a hotel for several weeks to participate in a training course provided by We the Free, what is the credential that I'll gain? What are the palpable skills that I'll gain? If I have to convince my mother to pay for this course you're offering in the same way that I'd have to convince her to pay for my tuition if I decided I wanted to become a dentist, where is the evidence that this is a profession for which I am receiving professional training that is really going to change the rest of my life? I wonder if they've deleted that from their website. It's just, I haven't Googled it. It would be interesting to know if, parallel to the statement about leadership that they deleted after I questioned it, if they've deleted their promises along these lines. I can only remember speaking to one other vegan organization that offered training of this kind. And I can say, honestly, when I looked into the training they were offering, it was far, far worse than just casually watching what a comparison. It was far worse than just casually watching YouTube videos on my own channel. The reality was that this vegan organization that I'm leaving nameless, could offer nothing more than participating in Skype calls with middle-aged windbags who haven't accomplished anything as they pat themselves on the back for their past activism and vaguely encourage the next generation to try their best, refusing to deal with any difficult questions, refusing even to engage in basic fact-checking, let alone real research, etc. Yeah. I remember that conversation. They were really, the other organization I'm alluding to, they were really offering professional training in precisely the area of my own expertise. It's like how to edit a YouTube video. It's like, you sure? You sure you don't want me to teach you how to do that? Like, I have a lot of experience editing YouTube videos, guys. And they didn't. They didn't. To call them middle-aged was kind. These were actually quite elderly people. And they had no demonstrated success, no experience with exactly the kind of social media activism they were supposedly providing with an education with. All you'd get is a bunch of pep talks. And probably that's all We the Free can offer too. Pep talks of exactly the kind I already mentioned. Their repeated claim that street activism works when it doesn't, and it never has. It's a safe bet that it never will because it never has. In the year 2022, there are a whole lot of Skype calls like that going on, and there is not much to be learned from them, aside from the demonstrable stupidity of the gray-haired generation of vegan activists who have taken us so far but can go no further. I studied political science at the University of Toronto, and the quality of education was abysmal. However, if I compare the pep talks offered by DXE as training, I would have to say that a university education of political science is immeasurably better. You heard it here first, people. À-bas-le-ciel. I've never heard anyone say anything like that, discuss anything like that, reflect anything like that. Because ultimately, every activist organization is an educational organization, but the education you're getting is actually harmful, at best, completely worthless. I sadly, by joining an organization like DXE, the education you're getting harms you. It's not just that you learn nothing. What you are learning does you harm. The idea of providing professional training in vegan activism is an interesting, daunting, and slightly surreal one. I honestly can't imagine Gary Francione doing a good job at it, and he has tried. I can't imagine anyone at PETA doing a good job at it. If I were to sign up for this professional training in 2022, what can We the Free offer me? And please note, I am in need of a profession. I can devote a great deal of time and money to this. Enrolling in baking college to become a vegan baker didn't work out. If I were to sign up in 2027, what would We the Free be able to offer me? These are the questions vegans cannot answer.
Hit mics like Ted Koppel, rifle expert, let off the Eiffel, burn a flag in your grass, spiteful, ringleader, set it off, rap Derek Jeter, culprit, prince of the game, wish you could see us, we lay low, glitter wax, fold bangles, priceless ropes, lay around the guard, get tangled, woolly hair, eyes fiery red, feet made of brass, 12 men following me, it be the guard staff move, every script's like Mim totaled it. Wilshire, Fairfax, sunbeaming, wifey on the beach, sipping Zima, Wubinos to Latinos. We lust Selena overnight. God